Hello there, I'm Mr. Beat, and this is 10 Questions. It's turned into a series, wouldn't you know? I did one of these with JJ McCullough about a year and a half ago, and I just keep doing it because I enjoy it so much. It's a great excuse just to talk to really cool people, uh, a chance to hang out with my friends because I don't really have much of a social life. So thanks for being here. How this works is you in case you've never watched one of these before, I have come up with 10 questions to ask Professor Dave, as he's known online. And he has come up with 10 questions for me, and we're going to interview each other. We don't know our questions ahead of time. They are open ended questions, so hopefully that will lead to a more enjoyable conversation for you to listen to. Okay, good. The audio is working. Okay, and uh, this will last a couple hours. We probably won't have much time to take questions from the audience because Dave did tell me that he has to head out. He has a young family to attend to in a couple hours, so we will be as a well-oiled machine as possible today. But yeah, so if you don't know who Professor Dave is, I first met Dave in 2017, almost 6 years ago. It was at, I guess, technically the second EduCon ever, which is just a group of edutubers that met up. Most of us at the time had very small channels, Dave included, and we just but there were some random big-time edutubers that showed up, like CGP Grey and Derek from Veritasium and stuff like that. So it was really inspirational. It was at a hotel across the street from VidCon. So this was in June of 2017. I was immediately impressed with Dave. The first thing that I loved about him, just chatting with him, was that he didn't pretend to be anyone else. He's authentic, tells it like it is, and also was very helpful, gave me good advice. Even though he'd been doing it less than me, or a shorter amount of time than me, he had already learned a lot of tricks along the way. So anyway, we got along pretty well. We've stayed in touch. I've actually contributed to his channel. I wrote his economic series, and we've enjoyed working with each other. And I can't believe we haven't done this sooner. So everyone, please welcome Professor Dave. Wait, so, oh yeah, you have your real name listed there. Can everyone know your last name? Is that fine?
You had muted me there. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just go by Dave Farina. Professor Dave is like my channel, and I call myself that on my channel. But yeah, then in general, I'm just, hey, I'm Dave Farina.
Dave Farina, so weird. Yeah, I know it's like people calling me Matt Beat.
Sure. Yeah. I suppose.
I probably should do that though to avoid the confusion with, that other guy.
What advice were you talking about? I don't remember giving you any advice.
Of course you don't. I knew you wouldn't remember this. No, we were sitting at one of those round tables, and I had just met you, and I think I didn't even really know much about your channel. But then I was just like saying, "Oh man, animations are so difficult. I really struggle with them." And then you're just like, "No, I actually have it." Because you were explaining to me how it doesn't have to be as complicated. People make it complicated, but especially with After Effects. But if anybody can learn basic animations on there. Ultimately, I actually went a different route with my animations. I don't even, because I'm a Mac guy. I use Final Cut Pro mostly, but I
use Mac. I'm a Mac guy.
But you still use Adobe, right?
Yeah, I use Adobe. Yeah.
Actually, yeah. Well, I don't know why I said the Mac thing, because my main program is still Microsoft PowerPoint.
I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
Yeah, I still screencast my animations on there.
What I do is largely just text and image based. So it's more or less the same. I just find the interface, I just find After Effects to be so easy to use, easier than PowerPoint. But and then you can use a little bit of motion if you want to. Although I think you can on PowerPoint too. I don't know. I'm not an expert on PowerPoint, but
Yeah. No, I am, of course. So I something I didn't mention about your channel before we get into our 10 questions. You kind of do it all, like in terms of content area. Like I know you majored in chemistry, right? That was your
Yep.
degree.
Hmm.
But then I think you branched out to other fields of science in the early days, like was it physics and biology
Yeah,
first, or
biochem, bio, physics, astronomy, math. I mean, stuff that I had studied and felt confident that I could explain well. Yeah.
and now it's like all of the above, right? You're trying to like cover. I heard you on a podcast one time where you said your goal is to like have basically like an encyclopedia of knowledge on your channel, like all subject
Yeah,
areas.
every academic subject there is. Why not,
Nice.
right?
Yeah, yeah. So I economics is what I helped you out with, but
Hmm.
I feel yeah, I on my channel that's definitely not the case. I'm never going to branch too far away from American history or geography or economics. Those are kind of my because those are the three things I studied
Hmm.
in college, and yeah, but yeah, that's awesome. That's very ambitious of
I'm
you.
nothing if not ambitious.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, yeah, for a while there you're releasing like 5 videos a week, right? You're only doing three a week now,
Yeah,
right?
I was hitting five for a little while. I pulled back to three, and I've settled at three, which is still a lot. But
Especially with two
couple,
youngins at home.
yeah, a
Yeah.
couple of kiddos. So yeah.
uh, all right. I will start things off if that unless you want to start it
Sure.
off.
No, go ahead.
Okay. And if you remember last time, we have a little ticker here. So first, keep us on track. Uh, my first question is pretty broad, actually. What would you, what? No, I'll go with this one actually. Yeah. What motivates you?
What motivates me? That's I would say there are two equally correct answers. One is money, obviously.
You
You
greedy
gotta.
capitalist! I
I
knew it.
know.
No, it's good.
I mean, everybody's got to make money. I got mouths to feed, so you want to
Mm-hmm.
do something that is going to be lucrative. And I mean, initially, starting the channel was just I was just trying to find some passive income. I was in a touring band, and I just thought we all were looking for passive income, and I thought if I can get a little bit of money passively from this channel, it'll make things less stressful. You know, we can play a lot of dates and not worry about working. And then once it hit, I realized, wow, like, okay, actually, I could really, really, really make a living off of this and then some. So that's hugely motivating. What I'm really, really happy about is that it happens. What ended up being the thing that is most lucrative that I can do is also the thing that I am. Is a thing that I feel that I'm really good at, and something that is really necessary, and something that is contributing to society in a significant way in the sense that I help a lot of students pass their classes, and then also more lately with the debunking stuff, targeting misinformation, neutralizing it. So I'm motivated to make the biggest difference I can in society, as I think are a lot of people. And I'm motivated to make as much money as I can, as I think everyone is. So that's about it.
Yeah, I always immediately. It sounds better, but I always immediately gravitate to the word impact, like
Hmm.
to have as big of impact as possible. And I think our goals are similar in that we want to, make the world a better place. But
Of
also,
course.
to do that, you have to uh, fight ignorance. You got to fight bigotry. You have to spread empathy, teach empathy. And I firmly believe that empathy is taught. Uh, so that's
That last part's not my strong suit, but but I agree with you.
that's related to one of my future questions here. Maybe I'll ask
Okay,
that next.
sure.
But yeah, I'm glad. See, like I said, everyone, he's a straight shooter. Tells it like it is.
That's right.
What's your first question for me?
Okay, so I ordered mine pretty like soft, ramping it up. So look, toss a soft one out here. If you could travel back in time to see any three bands live, which would they be?
Oh, I have a music question for you too. Yeah, we're both musicians. We've
Yep.
talked about this quite a bit. So as far as performances, um, you know, I really think it would be cool to see the first time that John Lennon and Paul McCartney performed together, and what was it, 1959, I think.
The Quarrymen.
Yeah, yeah. Um, it probably wouldn't have been that good actually. We just always romanticize these things,
Right.
but
But it would be amazing to see. Yeah,
yeah, it would be.
for sure.
And then I know it's cliche, but I still am a huge Jimi Hendrix fan. Like I think that he, I, there are probably better guitarists than him, but he's still my favorite guitarist, and so
I think in a
maybe
guitarist poll, like a poll amongst guitarists, he'd probably win. Honestly, best
yeah.
ever.
But it's such a cliche thing to say. That's what I guess what I feel
It's a
like.
cliche because he's the best.
Because yeah, it's like saying the
Everybody
Beatles were
knows
the
it.
best band
Yeah,
ever. Yeah.
they
So
are. And
I don't know what specific show, but I would like to see. I would like to see him. You know,
hmm
he died way too young. And then I honestly my first favorite band of all time is Radiohead, and I have got to see them before. My second favorite band of all time is Weezer. I'm a big power pop slash emo guy, and one regret I had was I never got to see Weezer with the original lineup. I've seen them 3 times after or with future
hmm
lineups, but I really am a big Matt Sharp fan. He was with the band and for the first 2 albums.
Is that original guitarist or who's that?
Yeah, he's an original guitarist, background vocalist, and he
hmm
ended up leaving the band after Pinkerton, the second album, and he formed his own band called the Rentals, which they still exist.
Oh, I like the Rentals. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't know. I did not know that that was a former Weezer
Oh,
member. Yeah, I mean, like I don't have like encyclopedic knowledge of all those bands, but yeah, Weezer was my favorite band. Like for a second, like senior year in high school,
yeah.
and then I did like Rentals, Friends of P. That's
Yeah,
a good
they have
song.
a song like about Elon Musk that did pretty well a couple years back. But
hmm
anyway, just to see them in the early days at some point, I think would have been really cool. Maybe when they started out in Massachusetts before they came out to California.
hmm
So,
Nice.
yeah. What about you? I got to ask you the same.
Sure. Let's just do all of each other's questions ourselves too. Probably Zeppelin. Uh,
Yeah.
early 70s Zeppelin would be astounding. Probably early Floyd too, like not Sid Barrett era, but like Saucer Full of Secrets era, like pre Dark Side, like around metal that era.
Also,
Um,
early 70s.
yes, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm a big early 70s guy, definitely. Also Mahavishnu Orchestra would have been really dope.
Oh.
Or either that or I'm a huge fan of like early 60s Miles Quintet, like Herbie Hancock, Wayne Shorter, Ron Carter, Tony Williams lineup. I think pound for pound, that might be the best band of all time. Um, so it would be that. Yeah.
I need to
I like
check
me
that
some
out.
jazz. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I've got a bunch of those records.
that's always been the genre that I avoided too much was jazz, and I finally started to get into it in recent years, and but
hmm
still mostly like John Coltrane and stuff like that.
Coltrane's
It's
great. Yeah,
yeah,
you kind of got to know where to go because, like, I don't know. Yeah, some people think like it's like some people are like, "Oh, I don't like jazz," but it's because they've heard like smooth jazz or something, and
elevator
it's like,
music.
yeah, it's like, well, that's not. Come on, like,
Yeah,
you gotta listen to the good stuff, man.
yeah, you got to
Yeah.
go to start at least big band and 40s 50s era. Anyway,
hmm
all right. Well, moving right along. We I don't know what direction I want to go though. Maybe we'll keep it music related now.
Why not?
Yeah, it's okay to mix up the order of your questions. All right,
hmm
second question. And if you don't have an answer for this, that's okay because it's actually I didn't. Again, these are you've never heard these questions. What's your favorite album from each decade going back to the 1960s? So your favorite album of
Okay.
the 60s, favorite of the 70s, favorite of the 80s, etc.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
See, I know.
Oh my gosh.
And while you're thinking, yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll say mine while you're thinking because that's a
Okay, yeah. You go, and then
okay.
maybe that'll trigger something.
Uh, For the '60s, I would say probably "Pet Sounds" by the Beach Boys. A lot of my music actually is very heavily influenced by the Beach Boys. '70s, Dark Side of the Moon,
Hmm.
Pink Floyd, and '80s. I honestly had a hard time with the '80s. I always struggle with this, but because I still listen to it all the time, and it's kind of a guilty pleasure. Uh, Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen. I just feel like it's something that everybody can love, and I don't know. And then I'm a little embarrassed to say that one though. '90s, Weezer's first album, Blue Album.
Hmm.
The aughts, I would say probably Sufjan Stevens, Illinois. I'm a big Sufjan Stevens fan. And then the 2010s. I think this technically came out in the 2010s. M83, Hurry Up, I'm Dreaming.
Okay.
Uh, Big fan of that album. Okay.
Nice.
Hopefully that was enough time to inspire
Yeah.
you.
I mean, okay, so I don't know. There's some easy one. Okay, so '60s, you're probably gonna, yeah, maybe. I mean, Pet Sounds is incredible. Probably, I'd pick a Beatles record. I flip flop on my favorite Beatles record all the time. Right now, I think I say Rubber Soul. I think Rubber Soul might be my favorite Beatles record.
It's a good one.
But like Abbey Road, I mean, this. How are you gonna pick a favorite Beatles record?
No crap.
Um, yeah, '70s, yeah, Dark Side, stuff like that. I'll go with like Yes, Close to the Edge is a
Ah,
record that really had a profound impact on me.
okay.
Listening to that, as I got into that when I was like 18, I think, and it just like and I think that was like 72 or something like that. So I'll say that one, but obviously there's so many classic rock and progressive rock albums you could choose. '80s, I don't know. So I don't like '80s music, like what you would call a genre of '80s music, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't lots of great music going on in the '80s. What is something that like is kind of '90s-ish but started in the '80s? Like, I'm trying to think. What's a genre?
Well, like the I always say the Pixies, as far as like
Yeah.
they paved the way for alternative rock as a whole genre, like
Yeah.
and grunge and
Or Talking Heads or something, or
yeah, yeah.
something in there. Yeah, it's hard to I can't it's hard to pick one in the '80s. I mean, you could even talk about like Metallica and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not like a I mean, I used to when I was younger, I used to really like those first couple Metallica records.
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah, like Nine Inch Nails got started. Trent started in the '80s. I think
Yep.
Pretty Hate Machine was like '88.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like industrial stuff. There's just like a lot that like it was a little more amorphous as opposed to the '90s where it's like, okay, we have a genre that defines the '90s. So '90s, I would have to go something grunge. Um, maybe Soundgarden, Super Unknown, maybe. I mean, Nevermind is a freaking. I mean, how? But I think no, I think I would go OK Computer.
That's my second favorite '90s album.
OK Computer is another one that just like I think I heard that for the first time. I must have been in like seventh grade or something. I was probably like 12, so I was
Yeah.
just getting into cool music, and that one in particular, I remember not really being sure what it was all about, but I'd heard it was popular, and I got it at the Sam Goody or whatever, and I remember listening to that like on my little Discman. Like I think we were on vacation, so I was like in the airport or something. And you know how like OK Computer, like the record cover, it's all about like it's got all that hustle bustle all over it. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like in the airport, kind of like feeling like that too. And just like that first time Airbag hit, and I was like, okay, I don't fully understand this. Yeah.
Well, I remember exactly where I was when I first listened to Kid A.
Uh-huh.
I was actually on the bus, and I was just like, I didn't like it, because it was so
Mm-hmm.
different, and they kind of forced. And then over time, I was like, this is one of the best albums ever.
Yeah.
But anything that really kind of challenges your taste, but then it ultimately is like,
Yeah, and now I'm obsessed with Kid A. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
Radiohead just blows my mind in that sense that they kind of are the only other band that has matched the Beatles in the sense of their discography being this incredible linear journey. that if you follow them, if you look at like Pablo Honey and then like the bends, and then it just very gradually ramps up in terms of like how experimental, how avant-garde, but yet always retaining, like not avant-garde for the sake of avant-garde, like genuinely pushing the forefront of music, but still knocking out these songs. I mean, Radiohead's one of my top bands of all time for sure. Awesome. The aughts, I want to go something synth pop because that's like one of my favorite genres. But
Postal Service, maybe give up Postal Service.
I'd see Postal Service. I mean, it's like, yeah, that one song is good.
I love that whole album. I don't know.
I mean, and I like Death Cab too, but no, that wouldn't be. I mean, like, when were those first few LCD Sound System records? I think it was.
Oh yeah, those were
that
early
was in there.
odds.
So I'm a big LCD Sound System fan now. I wasn't aware of them at that time. So maybe something like that. I don't know. I love MGMT, Passion Pit, like all that stuff. So that was like kind of the genesis of that genre. So something around there. The teens. The older I get, the worse I am with current music. So I think I was already bad at current music at that time.
That's everybody. Yeah, it happens. You got to kind of force yourself. And I struggle with this too. But what really helps me kind of keep it, fresh with, is just going to Spotify and really discover weekly playlist. It kind of forces me to listen to newer stuff.
Yeah.
But then there's like songs on there. It's just like 10 years old. I'm like, oh, this just came out. Oh, it came out 10 years ago. Because I feel like the last decade or so, music doesn't.
Yeah.
It seems like it's fresh. Like it's all.
Yeah. I mean, I remember listening to stuff in the tour van, and I still consider that to be recent. But that was like 8 or 9 years ago. Like I like the second to last Tame Impala record, where he shifted more electronic influence, and everyone was like, oh, I liked Lonerism better. It's like, no, man, this one's better. This one is better. That was a great record. And then the 20s, I have no idea what's happening right now. I have no clue. I have no idea what's
your music. Right, tell everyone your band.
The Simulated Sun EP. Actually, that came out in 2019. Oh man, that was so long ago. Yeah, I have a project called Simulated Sun. So I mean, I've always been a drummer in all my bands, but then when I was in a band called The Lonely Wild, which was starting to do pretty well, but then it ended up not working out. So after that, I was focusing on the channel, and I knew I'd come back to music when I had a little bit more means, some funding and everything. And so, I started a channel called a band called Simulated Sun, but it's, so now I'm fronting it. So I play synth and, arguably sing lead. I think I'm going to maybe shift that over to somebody else and sing backup, but, I write everything. It's super synthy oriented, like vintage futurism like retro futurism meets genuine futurism. Like I'm kind of trying to confuse you temporally, like generally futuristic, but you don't know whose future it is kind of. I just love like space and tech and prog and psychedelia and groove oriented music. So it's like synth pop, electro rock stuff. Got a few music videos up on YouTube if anybody wants to check it out.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the description later. But my music's very synth heavy too, because keys has always been my main instrument, and that's I mean, I took 8 years of piano lessons, so that's kind of how I write songs mostly. Cause I mean, you can also there's a little bit more flexibility with creativity, I think, because a lot of times when you write a song with a guitar, it's like 4 chords, it's like you got the hook, and then there's just the only real difference is the melody or the melodies. Yeah. So.
Sure. Yeah. And I don't even know how to play guitar. So yeah, I differentiate myself that way. I write either at a synth or at the computer using VSTs, and I find like a cool, like arpeggiated texture or something that inspires me, and then I'll like work around that, but usually just on a synth and find a cool thing. I'm kind of over the thing is that like, I know there's still good guitar driven music being made, but I think culturally as a whole, we've shifted past that. Like it's not really about guitar driven music anymore. I think that synth led music. So like I still really like guitar, but I like guitar, like the way I utilize guitar in my tunes is I like like as a rhythmic instrument, like the way like James Brown would use it or something, or just
Yeah.
as this like weird textural thing, a lot of like
Mm-hmm.
scrapes and noise and just kind of volume swell to it. Just like different ways, and occasional lead lines, but definitely not like guitar forward music. I write synth forward music for sure.
Yeah. I wonder if we're losing some of the audience with our
Okay,
dorkiness
let's
about
get
music talk. Like, what? These guys are educators. No,
yeah.
no, that's cool though.
Okay,
Your turn.
I can switch it up a little bit here. So my second one is, if you could live for a year in any historical period, which would it be?
Somebody asked me this before. I don't remember who it was. I always gravitate towards the 1960s. There's something about it's just a really exciting time, but it's also not too far back where you still got at least some creature comforts. The technology isn't too antiquated.
Right.
Yeah, like and also I'll never forget watching. There was this show. I don't even remember the name of the show, but it starred James Franco, and it was about him like preventing the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And
Oh yeah.
I only watched a couple episodes, but I was thinking about it a lot. Like, wow, I think I might want to do that. Uh, and one thing that stands out that in the pilot episode of that is how he goes back, and it's like a phone booth or something. This is anyone in the comments. If you know the name of the show, go ahead and shout it out. James Franco. He goes back to the '60s. Anyway, he goes back and he's like, the food tastes so good, and I really think a lot about that because my parents used to they tell me like, oh yeah, McDonald's actually. They used to actually have real hamburgers. It wasn't processed in a lab
Yeah.
somewhere. It was like I think even a lot of people don't really truly understand that these days that like a lot of fast food isn't real food.
Yeah.
It's processed so much, and so something like that. But also like just the actual events of the time, and now that we know that it. I mean, back then it would have been terrifying. I guess a lot of people are terrified these days. Like, would they think that World War III is always imminent?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. No, it must have felt really special. It felt like a cultural shift, a really big cultural shift, which inevitably was squashed by the excess of the 80s and who knows whatever CIA activity. But
Well,
yeah.
the kind of neoliberalism reaction to it, because the '70s, the direction things were going was kind of crazy. Like it was very forward thinking. Like
Hmm.
society overall was very forward thinking in the '70s, but then that backlash was harsh, and we never kind of fully recovered from that. And
I agree. Reaganism took its toll.
yeah, like it's funny because like I always say I'm a pretty big advocate for market driven economies, but at the same time, like the pendulum went to the like an extreme. Like even when Jimmy Carter was in there in the late '70s, there were legitimate reforms that needed to be made in terms of deregulation and especially with central banking and all this. Like, oh, the we need to rein in inflation, obviously, and so more conservative, for lack of a better word, type economic policies are needed. But what happened with Reagan and his followers, and it just went to the extreme. And it's I know
The
they,
corporatocracy we have today.
yeah, like to a point where unions lost all their power, and I used to deny all this when I was younger. By the way, if you would have met me 20 years ago, I mean, I was pretty far to the right economically, but over time, as I've learned more about it, like, yeah, especially considering, like, I mean, you're not that much younger than me. Uh, our whole lives, I mean, you look at all the data and you adjust it for inflation, and wages have been stagnant. People deny that. No,
Hmm.
they've gone up. But if you actually adjust it for inflation, and I always say the only reason why we haven't had like full on revolution and chaos in most Western countries is because stuff has gotten cheaper overall. But now that's not even happening. And so that's why I think, in particular, the 2020s are a restless time. And I think we're going to see some pretty dramatic changes in the next few years. A lot of people don't see that. I think it's coming. I think we're going to see, and
I hope so.
it's not just on the left. It's like you even see like on the right, Trumpism tapped into something that's not all bad. I think there's some good there in terms of like this whole anti-elitism. I think that's a net positive because the elites got a little bit too comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know. Anyway.
Yeah, just expressed by the wrong person who is himself an
Yeah.
elite and
A demagogue. A demagogue. You took
yes,
advantage of him. He lied. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I agree the discontent, but I think just as they keep shoving iPhones in everyone's hands and distracting them, you know, as long as there's enough twerking going on the TikToks and the things, you know, I think that is suppressing any kind of. But you know, I don't know. Gen Z seems pretty politically motivated and smart. I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Cognizant.
We'll see what they do.
Dang millennials. All right. So yeah, let's see what relates to that. Let's see. Okay, I'll just ask this one. Um, Thinking back about your own life, how did you learn how to think critically? Like, was this something that you were taught, or do you feel like you just kind of over time learned how to do it?
Wow. Learned how to think critically. I don't know that I ever. I don't even know that you can teach or learn. Well, I mean, I think you can learn it. I don't know that you can teach it. I mean, I think it's just something. I mean, I was really into like blocks and puzzles and stuff as a kid. I've just always had like an organizational, analytical mind. I have fairly mild OCD. So I just I have a very meticulous way of looking at things. I think I've always been hyper analytical and a critical thinker. I believe so.
Do you think
Yeah.
curiosity kind of underlies that? Do they go hand in hand? Because I think about how the lack of curiosity in the world today, I think, is a big
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. You don't figure out how things work unless you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my family is pretty science oriented. I mean, in particular, my dad is a chemist. So yeah, there was definitely some talk, you know, in the house of like, how does that work? What do you think? What do you think about that? What's going on? And, you know, what's your opinion about that? And kind of get the wheel spinning a little bit. What is fire? Is fire alive? Why isn't it alive? Explain to me why it's not alive. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Just
I did
like,
not have that growing up. I did not have that.
not
I
a
did.
lot of it, but like, you know, sometimes.
I had you believe this, and
Right.
that's all. That's it.
I will say, I mean, you know, being a parent now as well, it helps me really put things into perspective, and like the faults that my parents had, it's just so much easier to forgive them for them. But one thing they knocked out of the park was just, you know, they grew up in Italy and they had religion. I mean, not shoved down their throats as much as other families, but it was very prominent, and they rejected it for the most part. My dad, in particular, you know, around early teen years, was like, "Nuh-uh, atheist." And so when we were born, me and my sister, there was just no. It wasn't like you don't. You know, it was just a vacuum. It was just a vacuum from which I could piece together my own worldview from my own experience without any kind of pre-existing layer or logic just put in as a foundation or a baseline that I then later had to undo or work against. You know, I think a lot of people that are grown up that grow up with some kind of indoctrination, like they'll always like, you ever meet somebody that has become incredibly secular, but they still view the world through this like Christ lens. You know what I mean? They still try to find ways to find divinity and divine purpose and all these things, and which is
Hmm.
fine. Everybody can do whatever they want, but I'm grateful to never have had that instilled in me, so that I can be sort of a free agent and view the world with a lot more objectivity. Yeah, that's been helpful.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I definitely was heavily indoctrinated growing up, but I think what kind of kept me, I mean, I was raised the same way as my brother and sister, my younger brother and sister, but they have remained very religious. And I wonder, like, why am I different? Why am I different than them? You know, if it's so much about our environments. So I always think about that, like, why? Because it would make my life a lot easier if I just believed the same exact things as my family.
Hmm.
And for many years, I pretended to I pretended to agree with them on stuff just because I didn't want to see
Yeah.
them upset, you know. Um, but yeah, I think what really keeps me going is the fact that I'm just never fully satisfied with any answer, and I think that helps me with my own videos too. Probably with you, right? You just like, you know that you're never settled. You like, there's always more.
Oh yeah. As a generalist, I am acutely aware of how much more there is, because I'm constantly interfacing with topics that I know very little about.
Generalist, yeah, that's like, I never really heard
Yeah,
someone call themselves that.
I'm a generalist. Yes.
Could you define that? Like, because
So I go broad, not deep, right?
oh, okay.
I'm not interested in specializing, right? The traditional academic route, if you go through all the way and you get a doctorate, you end up being a leading expert in this unbelievably thin sliver of the pie, right? You're specializing in a subdivision of a subfield of one area of science. You know what I mean? You know so much about one tiny, tiny, tiny little thing. Whereas if I'm interested in being a social commentator and a science communicator and a futurist and like somebody that can look at broad scale social problems, you're going to want to be a generalist. You're going to want to be able to synthesize information from disparate fields. Any problem that has societal relevance is going to be interdisciplinary, right? Even within science, something like climate or whatever, it's you're looking at aspects of geology and ecology and physics and chemistry. So I want to have a working vocabulary and a baseline understanding of all of these areas, and that's part of why I'm doing what I do with the channel, because even when I hire people to write me ecology content or geology content or things that I don't know about, of course I do not become an expert in those areas, far from it, but I still am having an expert write me scripts, which then for my work, which I make money doing, I have to read the scripts, edit them to fit my voice, then while I'm animating them I must comprehend it in order to adequately illustrate it, and then so it is seeping in. Obviously, not all of it. I don't retain all of it, but I just get a sort of a vague understanding, or I just at least enhance my worldview, and I am developing sort of just this broad spectrum of understanding with all these little gaps that just slowly get filled in by little things. So the goal is over the next decade or two to become a really powerful generalist, a really formidable generalist that can look at any social issue and without being an expert in any one area, being able to synthesize a lot of data. And then if you have further questions, you're like, okay, I understand all of this. This is a little unclear. I'm going to talk to an expert in this field so I can get more clarity about this. But if you're a specialist, you're just anything outside of your specialty, you're essentially lost. You know what I mean? What does an astrophysicist know about biochemistry? Nothing. Essentially nothing, usually. So
first of all, TIL, I'm a generalist as well. I never realized I was. But second, I think most educators in general kind of strive to be generalists because what we specialize in is communication. That's basically. I think there's this misconception a lot of our viewers have of us, like, oh, you're so smart, you know a lot about a lot or whatever.
mhm.
Not really. Like I would say even like history too. And first of all, history is the quickest way to learn anything, which is why I love it. Generalist, hello.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, like I'm not. I always say I'm not an expert on pretty much 99% of historical content. I get annoyed when people are like, "Oh, you have a master's degree in history. Tell me about this thing about Greek history." I don't know Greek history.
Right. Yeah, it's
uh,
just too much to know. Yeah, it's like yeah,
yeah.
same with science. They're like, "Oh, blah blah blah, random science fact." I don't know. I thought you were a science guy. You're supposed to know that. It's like you don't. Nobody knows all the science. It's
Yeah.
impossible. So
I've seen a lot
yeah.
of people talk trash about you online about say, "Oh, he's not a real professor," because I think
Hmm.
they have this misconception that in order to be a professor, you have to have a PhD or something, but they don't even look up the definition of professor. Like you're a communicator, you know how to
Yeah,
communicate this stuff.
I mean, there's so. I mean, yeah. Obviously, I get this every single day, and it's annoying as hell.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's so many layers to it. Like, first of all, yes, you don't need a doctorate to be a professor. There's plenty of professors with a master's degree. But yeah, no, duh, I'm not a professor. I'm a science communicator. I do this full time. I make online, make YouTube content full time. I used to teach at a university. And when I started my channel, it was my university organic chemistry lectures delivered to
Yeah.
camera. That's why I chose that name. I was like, it's clearly tongue in cheek. It's Professor Dave. It's like, it's just, but it's, the idea that it is this far fetched name for the channel is ridiculous. It's just,
Maybe I should change my channel name to Professor Beat so people stop mixing me up with the other
with
guy.
Mr. Beast. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. It's your turn for a question. We'll keep it
Okay.
going here.
Okay. Do you regret making any video that you've ever made?
Ooh. Huh. Maybe. Not really though. If I were to if I was forced to choose one that I was like, maybe I shouldn't have. Probably that anti-Semitism one that I made that just kind of attracted a lot of hate. Like I
Yeah.
got so much hate for that, and I try to be impartial. I made everybody mad. My wife had a friend who was Jewish who was mad at me because I used the term Jew. Apparently that's offensive to some people, and then of course
Depending on context. Yeah.
yeah, and then I had people that said, "Oh, going on and on about Palestine and the suffering there," and I'm just like, well, I mean, more than one thing can be correct at the same time. But obviously, the
Hmm.
majority of hate came from the people that are anti-Semitic, and I guess it's just you actually read your comments, and I kind of do too sometimes when I'm in the right
Very
mood.
active in there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I think a lot of people think we're crazy. Like, why would you read your comments? And I'm just like, well, we are nothing without our viewers. Like that's why I'm kind of checking the chat out right now. I'm reading those comments. Soup. Frank Barron says soup. I read them because a lot of times I learn from them.
Yeah.
But in the process, you're exposed to that, and it really does psychologically damage you over time. And I think you seem to have a thicker skin for that, though.
Well,
From talking
I
to
do, I do, but also you get numb to it. I mean, you can
yeah,
only get called these names so many times before you're dull to it. But yeah, similarly, yeah, it's just, I mean, it's really on another level. It's gotten worse and worse every year. My channel, it's because I debunk so many things. I attract so many subcategories of lunatic. It's just an infestation every day on my
I'm
channel.
sorry, this wasn't one of my 10 questions, but can I ask you just real quick?
Yeah.
What what group is the most vicious that comes after you that you've attacked or that you've not correct debunked?
Right. So, definitely by far, I mean, to answer my own question, similarly, when you said it was because of the backlash, I don't regret it, but the little bit of content I made on the trans stuff
Oh,
attracted for the first time the like alt-right incel community, and they were so much worse and more depraved than flat earthers. And like flat earthers look cute to me after what that was a period of about a month where I was getting called a pedophile literally every 3 to 5 seconds, just over, pedophile, groomer, all this stuff. Just like the amount of hate. Like I've got a really thick skin, but this was like, holy crap. This is
that's why
like,
you turned off the comments on that one
yeah,
video.
on both of
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Oh,
'Cause I just don't want to deal with it.
yeah.
Why am I a slave to what you want to do on my front lawn? You know what I mean? Why should I let you defecate on my front lawn? This is my property. No, I'm putting a fence. Go away. I don't care. I don't care what you say about my credibility. Oh, no, I turned them off because I got tired of dealing with this barrage. And then obviously fewer of them, but a percentage of them all go to other content and spew their hatred there.
See,
So
you turned your comments on the other video. You
yeah.
must not want to engage. Like,
Yes.
no, you're being harassed.
I'm being harassed. Yeah. It was just like bananas. So
I'm sorry you had to go through that. But
I mean, in the end, does it really affect me? No, not in a.
Well, it can. I've gotten a death threat. I've had to
Yeah.
report it to the FBI.
I've got a couple of those. Yeah.
Did you report it to the FBI?
I got one by text, a very serious threat, and I reported it to the police station. I don't think they did anything, but
you got a family, man. You gotta. I
I
get
know.
why you're very secretive too. My years ago, like 7, 8 years ago, when my kids were really little, they were a couple times that I had them in videos, and like I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
Over time, and I had 300 subscribers. It wasn't a big deal, but
Right.
I don't do that anymore. Even when they are in the video, I make sure they're kind of like they're not in the shot, and
My wife is pretty firm on that. She's like, absolutely not. And
yeah.
When Reza asks to have his own YouTube channel, like maybe no, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I don't know.
You can show it to your family.
Yeah.
Or little pretend channel, which is kind of
Right.
what we do.
Yeah, I don't know. Like we'll reassess. Like I mean, he may never want to, so who cares? But it's just like
every kid wants to be a YouTuber
sure.
now.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But
Right.
yeah, for now, most people don't even know that I have kids or a wife or anything or family. I mean, I say it in an interview or anything, but I definitely don't like. Here's my family. Like I just no. This is my professional life. Yeah.
Definitely. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is it your turn?
I think it's yours. This was the regret.
Okay, it is. Yeah. You're right.
So on to number 4.
All right. Well, we'll stick it. Why did I say that? We'll stick with kind of your own life, I guess. This is actually from Mrs. Beat. She wanted to know what kind of student were you in school growing up. Also, kind of related. Were you were you a geek? Were you a punk, goth, jock, skater?
Okay, yeah, definitely not a jock. I mean, I was a swimmer. Competitive swimmer my whole childhood, age 7 through college. I swam in college too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. But that does not qualify one as a jock. Like I was even captain of the swim team, but nobody cared. It's not popular. I was like, all state and all conference stuff. Nobody cares. 0 popularity points for for being captain of the swim team. No, I was not. I think okay. Academically speaking, through high school, I was a very diligent, obedient student. I mean, I found school as a kid to be super duper easy. So I didn't think it was that hard, but I was definitely like a straight A student. Socially speaking, I'm very much a late bloomer in every sense of the term. So as like a young kid, I was very small, very late. And my social skills were very late to develop. So I definitely had a tough time. Like middle school was a nightmare for me. It was horrible. And then we moved to a new town in Connecticut called Wilton, Connecticut, like the day before I started high school. So I went to a new high school, which was a way better area and way better school and everything, but I knew 0 people. And so like on like the second day, like somebody sat with me at lunch and I was like, oh, thank God somebody sat with me. And it was like the first people I met were like this sort of kind of gothy, not full goth, but they were like super into, I mean, like I was wearing a Rage Against the Machine shirt. And so he were like, hey, that kid's cool. Let's see what that kid. And so that was definitely my identity. I got like super into like Korn and bands like that. And so I flirted with like almost goth. Like I almost started wearing like a wristband or something when I was like 14.
Spiked wristband.
Yeah. I contemplated it, but I didn't do it. And then from that point on through high school, I was just like amorphous, not like I wasn't like a category. I was sort of shy, and like because I didn't know people. Yeah, it took until my senior year for people to even like know who I was, because I would do comedy stuff with this a friend of mine, and so we would do dumb little sketches and stuff, and like we ran for senior treasurer and secretary and put up dumb posters and wrote each other's speeches and like made a whole farce of it. And so to surprisingly, people actually thought we were kind of funny. So like that was the first time I was like, oh, whoa, like I can get people to like notice me and like me this way. So so that changed everything. But then yeah, so that was high school. And then in college, I demoted myself to like a straight B student because I was so obsessed with music and exploring other things. So yeah, I was so heavily focused on music that I just studied barely hard enough to get B's, and that's how I did college.
Yeah.
So
All right. Yeah, I learned a lot there.
very detailed answer.
Thank you, Andy, by the way. Um, yeah, I never really fit into a category either. I loved corn in high school.
Yeah,
Uh,
a lot of
I
us
think
did.
we're very similar. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, also, the whole like, there's that show Freaks and Geeks, the Judd
love Freaks and
Apatow
Geeks.
show. Yeah, like those are the people I usually hung out with, both the Freaks and Geeks. But I also was technically a jock because I played soccer. I was on the soccer team and
Okay,
played tennis, and so I kind of moved. I was a chameleon of sorts, moved around. And what's funny is that Shannon, my wife, also same thing. Like we felt like we didn't really fit in completely with any group, and I think
oh, you met in high school?
we met in college.
Okay.
But it was very similar in terms of like she was a cheerleader, but also at the same time hung out with the freaks and geeks
Hmm.
like I did. So yeah, it's always interesting thing. I don't think the categories are as defined with Gen Z as they were with us. Like,
No, not at all.
yeah,
In fact, not even in the 90s. It was really a remnant of the 80s. How
ah,
the stark categories,
the dang Breakfast Club.
Revenge of the Nerds style. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I always think of the five groups from
right.
Breakfast Club. Yeah.
Hmm.
All right.
Totally. Okay, mine.
Yeah.
What do you miss the most and the least about teaching in the classroom?
Oh, great question. I definitely miss the most the students, the relationships that you build with uh, your students in the classroom and even outside with extracurricular stuff. I mean, uh, it gets lonely being in the basement. I'm not able to, but online you can interact. It's not the same. I have a Discord server. I try to get on there regularly. But the Yeah, I mean, the main reason why I got into teaching is because younger people tend to inspire me, and uh, it's pretty easy to get cynical once you're with a bunch of, especially people your age or older. That already in my mid 20s, I was just like, man, my idealism just went out the window so quickly after college. It like blew my mind, and
That's
so,
very
but
interesting because I feel that I am both cynical and an idealist. I managed to blend them. I don't know what it
yeah,
is.
that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. I've always been more idealist though. Like it's probably naive of me, but so yeah, that's what I miss the most. The thing I miss the least is I was not a big fan of the meetings. We had too many meetings and conferences and uh, the emails, the grading. I did not like the grading. Like I like to see progress in the classroom with interaction, like back and forth. Like, okay, you're getting this, but in terms of just like grading tests, like that's no.
Yeah.
Uh, Parents started to get worse my final couple years in the classroom, 2020, 2021, with the pandemic. All of a sudden, parents who previously only cared about sports now cared about curriculum for the first time, and they thought they knew more than I did. And so that kind of, I feel like I left it at probably a good time. A lot of teachers are still leaving right now, by the way. It's actually a crisis.
It's
There's
a problem.
teacher
Yeah.
shortages across the country, all fields, even social studies, which typically, like when I first applied for the position that I got in 2010, I later found out that there were 150 other applicants for that position. I felt so lucky to get that
Wow.
first teaching gig at Blue Valley High School in Overland Park, Kansas,
Yeah.
and it was part time starting out.
Hmm.
And
Now they'd kill to
now
have you.
now that same position has maybe 15, 20 applicants, but then math, uh, special education, science, zero applicants for some of those positions. So if you're
Wow.
watching this and you want to be a teacher, especially in science or math, you got a job. You just got to get that degree and certificate.
Hmm.
How long did you teach in the classroom?
I mean, it was off and on. I mean, a lot of it was just subbing, but then I taught at that trade university for about 3.5 years. So it was a good chunk
Oh
of
wow,
time. It
yeah.
was a weird environment. It's a very atypical environment. I mean, it's a trade university, so it's like not it's like even a notch below community college. Like it's not like a prestigious environment. And it was adult learning. It was accelerated courses for adults to get post-bac credits. So like they're doing a career change. They want to go into some medical field, but their bachelor's is in some other unrelated thing. So they have required coursework, chemistry, biology, anatomy, physiology, coursework they have to take prior to applying to some program.
Okay.
So I really liked teaching adults, like they were like my age. They were like my peers. I was in like my late 20s teaching people from early 20s to like 40s. Someone in
And
their
so they
40s.
really want to be there. They want to learn.
They want to be there. And
Yeah.
because I explained it so well, they were so grateful. Like it was a really positive relationship, as opposed to like I have taught a little bit of high school, and some of it was just like, my goodness, it was just so bad in certain instances. But yeah, so just like it's very satisfying to like teach someone, I feel, to the best of my ability, and then receive like they're grateful. They're like, oh, this is, I can't believe you taught me organic chemistry and I understand it. This is awesome. And then, as you say, like I just hated the bureaucracy. I mean, eventually I lost the job because I was in the band started really touring. So I was like, crap, like I want to hang on to this job because the pay is good, but I'm not going to screw up the band thing. So let's see how long I can juggle them. And eventually it was two things. One was that there was a new dean and a new academic advisor, and they were like, you have to change all your exams to multiple choice only. And I'm like, no, no, I'm not going to do that. So they didn't like that. And then also I would be skipping a lot of like faculty meetings because the band would wait until the very first moment I was done to go on tour. So I'd literally do the last class, go get in the van, have the final exam proctored, and have them fax me all the exams, and I would grade them remotely and send them in. So
Oh
eventually they were
wow.
just like, it was them being jerks, and then also them being tired of me doing that kind of stuff. And they're just like, all right, get rid of this guy. So like, okay, fine. I'm in a touring band. See you. Like, I'll miss the
Yeah.
money, but this is where I'm going. So yeah.
But at the same time, that was around the time you started making the videos, though.
It was a little later. I lost that
Oh,
job in like, yeah, late 2013. And then late 2014, I filmed all the OChem tutorials. So it was about a year. That year we were just touring. But then eventually I was like, "Ugh, we all have to like figure out how to make money. Like all of us are broke. It's a problem, because the band was making enough money to kind of pay for itself. Like we do a tour and come back with like 10 to 20K. But guess what? You need PR. You need to record. You need a music video. You need to like, the van needs gas. You need to like, it's so much money. So we felt really grateful that us being so broke, didn't have to like it. We could still do all this stuff, even though we
mm,
didn't have any money to invest in the band. The band was like making its own money, but we had, rent and stuff. And, two of them were married, and then the kids started coming, and we were all just like, oh my God, we have to
dang
figure
real
something
world.
out. Yeah. I was the last of us to have kids, but now we all have them. So yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. All right. I saw Mr. Terry here, so I don't want to really ask this, but I'm going to go ahead to because it reminded me of it. So hopefully he doesn't get offended. But Mrs. Beat and I, we were having this conversation the other day. She is not the biggest fan of reaction videos. She respects Mr. Terry. and the others. Well, the ones who actually are educators because they add context to it. But
I
at
don't
the
know who
same,
Mr. Terry is.
he's a history teacher, and
Okay.
we've collaborated. But he reacts to history videos. And
Okay, got it.
but anyway, what is your general opinion about reaction videos?
It's like you're psychic because I just yesterday filmed my first reaction video,
Oh my gosh!
and I'm planning on releasing it on Monday.
Holy crap!
So that's very interesting that you asked that. My thinking of it was what happened was this channel made this ridiculous garbage anti-evolution video where they're just parroting a bunch of apologist rhetoric, and the video itself only has like 70 something thousand views, not a lot, but the channel has like almost 1 million subscribers, and so maybe
Wow.
20 to 30 people were like, "You got to debunk this video," because I have a reputation now as a debunker, so they're like, "Debunk this, debunk this." And I looked at it, and I looked at it for like a second, and I was like, all right, this does not merit a debunk. It's a lot of effort to do a debunk. But it occurred to me, what if I try this like reaction style where I just play the video and just pause it and say how it's wrong the whole time, and then I just cut it together really quick. It'll be like one full work day of effort,
Mm-hmm.
and as opposed to like potentially 2 to 3 weeks of effort. Sometimes these debunks take, and so I did that, and I just uploaded it to YouTube to like check for errors and all that stuff. I think it worked out, and I think people will enjoy it. But ask me again in a couple days, and I'll tell you if people like it and if it's worth doing again. But I think it's a way for me to do debunking style content with 10% of the effort.
Yeah.
So I'm for it now, I think, as long as people like it.
I used to, yeah, I kind of like you had I've come around to it. If you were to ask me a few years ago, I would have been like, duh, And I think it's because of the early reaction channels that were just so cringy that they didn't add much to the original video, and many of them that even really have personalities that were charismatic or anything or entertaining.
Yeah.
There were exceptions like H3. I thought he was hilarious, but at the same time, like it was annoying. They were essentially leeches. They were taking all this hard work, and part of me also is like, if you can't beat them, join them, because like you said, it's a lot easier. And so like,
but I feel that I'm giving good commentary.
Yeah, and it has to be something that you are much more comfortable with because you've made videos about that specific topic in the past.
Yeah, I made a lot of debunks of this particular style rhetoric, so I know exactly what their script is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then the first video I chose to react to I do this every Monday morning now on Twitch. I will live stream pick one video because otherwise it gets out of control. And the first one I picked was the Johnny Harris video about inflation. And that was like, I first came across that video not that long after I wrote the script for your inflation video. And then I referred everyone to go to your channel to watch that video instead. Because it was just so triggering to me. I was just like, because so many people watch it and they just accept him as this authority on economics. And so yeah, like I do get, I guess, and I feel like we're putting out fires. Like it's exhausting. There's so much bad content out there, that so much misinformation, and a lot of the people that even spout misinformation, it's not like they're doing it in bad faith. They're the people the ones that you debunk, a lot of them are.
Yeah. This guy that I just reacted to, I think is not. I think he's just like he fell for the propaganda and is regurgitating it.
Yeah, and so but yeah, so I'm glad that you're doing that. It's actually, I want more. I'm trying to talk more history tubers in particular to do this because I feel like there's so much. Like there's this guy that made like an hour-long video trashing Abraham Lincoln. I forgot the name of his channel, but vlogging through history debunked his video. He got a lot of hate for that too, by the way. But I feel like it's now at a point where it's become like a public service to do this.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think that we're talking about two different styles. Like what we're talking about, I think has a lot of merit as opposed to like the traditional reaction video. Like my kid, he watches these videos of like, he's into classic rock and he'll watch a reaction video of two people listening to like Boston More Than a Feeling.
For the first time.
Yes. And they're just like,
Feels
then
like the
yeah,
first time. No, sorry.
and then they'll pause it, say something stupid, and then like it's like, what? Just listen to the song. Like, what? I mean, why are you watching this? Like, it
I
just
can't stand
I
those
get
channels.
so aggravated. I'm like, what is the purpose of what you're doing? I don't understand.
Yeah.
But
Well, they get a lot of clicks or a lot of
yeah,
views.
but I don't know how that works. Is like that's copyrighted. Like they can't possibly be monetizing that content. I don't know.
Yeah, they probably don't make much from the ads, but they can still make from other stuff, money from
Right.
other stuff. So,
Brings people in, and then other content is monetized. I don't know.
hmm
Whatever. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
Number 5. If you were sworn in as Secretary of Education, what major changes would you make to the public school system? Ooh, it's a
oh.
hard hitting one. Getting serious
Now you're
here.
saying now is this K-12 or is this also include public colleges?
I don't know. Whatever is the dominion of the office.
Okay, I think ultimately at some point in the future we're going to have to make public colleges, if not free, almost free.
Socialist.
Yeah, I know, right? Because like you have to have a bachelor's degree to enter the middle class anymore, and but the problem is that yeah, like I don't at the same time I don't like the federal government micromanaging this, so I'm kind of like antagonistic generally towards the Department of Education. The only reason why I wouldn't say get rid of the Department of Education and dismantle everything we do is because obviously the states and individuals, families depend so heavily on the Department of Education for just being able to go to higher education, college. If you look at, I mean, the cost of college is so ridiculous. K-12, like specifically, I know this is a bit out there, but I still am somebody who's a firm believer in individuals and families know how to spend money best. And so just giving money directly to families to spend on education and not assigning them a school based on where they live. Well, I think with I still haven't read this dang. Still haven't read this dang book, but my friend told me about it years ago. And this book here, Savage Inequalities, is about the root of many problems with public schools in this country, which is you property taxes pay for our schools. For the vast majority of their funding comes from property taxes. If you look at a country like France, this isn't the case. There's just a pool. There's a big fund that is for this purpose that's distributed equally. It's per pupil, and we like to say that's the case in all these 50. By the way, every single state has a different way of doing this because it's not in the Constitution. There's nothing in the Constitution about education. This is a 10th Amendment issue. So like I get like the federal government should step in and help. There's extra funding for impoverished schools, and that's good. That's great. But at the same time, it's like a Band-Aid. Mm-hmm. It's not attacking the root of the problem, which is why should your zip code determine where you go to school? And I taught in urban schools like Kansas City, Missouri. Extremely it was an eye-opening experience when I was a substitute teacher for a full semester in Kansas City, Missouri, because that was extreme poverty. And then at the end of the day, I would drive to a very wealthy district, Blue Valley, in the Kansas City area, where it was the opposite. You had extreme privilege, and it all like the school, where the suburban school looked like a college, whereas the inner city school that I substitute taught at
looks like an asylum.
Yeah, like didn't even have water fountains that worked.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I've subbed in a few places like that. It's really astounding.
So yeah, that's we got to attack that problem. That's what I would focus on, making sure that every student had equal access, and and usually that means, hey, just give the money directly to them. I'm a big also proponent of universal basic income. Just give the money directly to them so they can have freedom. Now, obviously, transportation is a whole nother issue,
mm-hmm.
so that might have to be something else to look at. But
cool. No, yeah. This is not my world. I don't think about this stuff ever. Curious to see what you would say. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't. Yeah,
yeah.
I just want to. Yeah, there should be just like a dictator that just like it's take the money out of defense and put it in education. Give it to I don't know. Just like redistribute all this, all these funds.
Yeah. Still alive. Thanks for the question and the super chat. I think algorithms for YouTube has definitely is a big reason why there's been misinformation spread for sure. But I do think that YouTube is actively try to reform this. Would you get that vibe? Like,
I mean, yeah, by taking steps to alter how the algorithm works. I mean, that's
yeah,
them doing. I think they walk a very they do a great job of walking a very fine line, right? Because they have a civic duty to curb this. It's enormously problematic and it's their fault and they have to do something about it. But they also don't want to become a platform that just willy-nilly, censors content.
hmm
So it's a difficult thing to approach. I think that they've done it properly, if you ask me, because it's like people are like, YouTube censors they delete flat earth. No, they don't. It's there. Go watch it. There's so many flat earth channels. It's all there. It's
yeah.
simply that, they don't show up prominently if you search for them, but if you know if you all the content is there for you to go find.
It's
I
not
mean,
suggested the same way as it used to be.
not as strongly. Yeah,
Yeah,
unless you truly write all of the keywords or the name of the channel. If you write the name of the channel, it comes up immediately, of course. But I think good on them for because it's very delicate. Like when you get, I mean, obviously, flat Earth is the dumbest thing imaginable. But with like vaccine stuff or like medical stuff, it's like we can't make YouTube be the arbiter of truth, right? It's not YouTube's job to figure out what's true and not true so that
right.
they can censor it. They don't know. It's YouTube. It's just it's a video platform. So it's hard to navigate. I don't envy them. It's a very difficult job, but um, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I don't
This
know.
next question actually is a good segue.
Okay.
How do you get people out of their echo chambers? What's the most effective way to do that?
I mean, you don't. There's no answer. I mean,
Ah,
it's so hard. I mean, I think that there could be an answer for an interpersonal relationship, but unfortunately, I'm not friends with anybody in an echo chamber. I'm really not. I don't have anyone in my personal circle that suffers these delusions or anything like that. So I make content that's trying to shake people out of their echo chambers, but it's really astounding. I've been more increasingly disheartened as of late as I go after specific figures and make content that's so undeniably and so devastatingly eviscerates, exposes, and humiliates them. And I still get these people in those echo chambers coming to my content, watching none of it, and either telling me I'm an idiot and I'm unqualified and the person I'm debunking is brilliant or something like that, or just, and then no matter how much I press them, no matter how much I say, where am I wrong? Where am I wrong? Where am I wrong? They deflect every time. Or in a Twitter exchange, same thing. It's just whack-a-mole. I'll demolish what they're saying, they ignore it and say something else. And it's absolutely astounding to me that how desperately they will avoid any information that neutralizes this thing. So I don't know.
yeah. That's interesting because I do have a lot of people in my life that um, are in echo chambers. I mean, I think technically all of us are in some kind of echo chamber. Let's be honest. Like,
Hmm.
we're not immune to it. But I think the difference is, yeah, like when you have people, you can tell that they're in an echo chamber because a lot of times they repeat the same handful
Oh
of
yeah.
talking points. It's the same
Yes.
stuff over and
Verbatim.
over. Yeah,
Verbatim.
like it.
Yeah.
Uh, like the for my anti-Semitism video, it's like they were kicked out of 105 countries or something like that. That's
Yeah.
you won't believe thousands of people type that exact
That
same
specific
thing.
number. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Water
uh,
finds its level. So,
yeah.
the flat earthers
so
say. It's like,
and so yeah, that's like a red flag that there's not critical thinking happening. But I think what's so effect like Mr. Terry actually I put it up here as well, put it back up. But like something, if you get out of your own comfort zone a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
then because like a lot of us have an audience because the audience they like us for some reason. I don't know why people like me, but like they like the way I explain stuff, I guess. And so even if they disagree with me, they're at least going to uh, hear me out. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's some people. I had so many people after the 2020 election video I made that were Trumpists. You know, they were in that echo chamber, the
Yeah.
Donald Trump echo chamber, and just the simple fact of me acknowledging that he lost the election, I had so many people unsubscribe from me, and
Yeah.
they said, "Oh, you're a shill," and I'm just like, I don't know. I got you wouldn't believe the emails I got because I guess they
Oh,
knew
I
they
believe
understood
it.
the implication. Yeah, the implications of it. Like, oh, whatever Mr. Beat says in this video, that's what really happened. But I mean, I'm it's reached a point now where we can't even state facts, and I'll never forget that Kellyanne Conway, the advisor to Trump, she once said that, well, we have alternative facts. And I got so triggered by that. Like, how dare you say there's a thing as alternative facts? Because if we have alternative facts, then we can no longer engage. If we're no longer in the same reality, then we expect no further progress in this world.
Yeah.
And I refuse to believe that. I think that we can at least have a consensus on facts, you know?
Yeah,
And
it
so,
used to be more subtle. It's just the past decade or so has devolved into just the blatant admission that facts don't matter. That it is everybody is peddling whatever narrative they want to peddle, and that's just where we're at now.
well, I still think, yeah, like if the best way to get people out of their echo chambers is maybe like, well, this is kind of leads to actually, I'll hold off what I'm going to say because I have another question that's related to this. So,
Okay.
yeah, what's your next question?
Number 6. What is the most fundamental difference between the Democratic and Republican parties?
Today in 2023.
Yes, sure. Today.
Okay, yeah, that's the key. Um, I think one thing that's I'll start positive. Like the Republican Party is much better than the Democratic Party at accepting dissenting voices within. There's a bigger tent. Like they like right now you're seeing two big camps. There's the Trumpists, the cult members who never really left Trump, who thinks he can do no wrong, and then there's the more pragmatic, more in reality Republicans, but still like a lot of what Trump has to say, who are more with DeSantis as the next presidential candidate. And you see this infighting going on, but we know ultimately the Republican Party is going to, whoever they end up nominating, they're all going to just get together and say, all right, we're going to do this. Whereas I think there's more of a, on the left in the Democratic Party, but really the left as a whole. When I say left, I know that's a term that's kind of meaningless these days, but when I'm talking about generally those who are more government involvement in order to have civil rights
Hmm.
and freedoms. But those folks, there's a purity test. There's more infighting, you see this right now with like Joe Biden is they assume that he's going to be the next candidate. He hasn't announced it yet, but then you have a new person that is running against him, Marianne Williamson, and the hate that she has gotten is unbelievable. And it's the same thing you saw with Bernie Sanders in 2016 when
Hmm.
he ran against Hillary Clinton. Uh, and I don't think there's a lot of people that I used to identify with the Democratic Party on this platform, on YouTube and Twitch, who no longer are because of that, those purity tests. I think of somebody like Jimmy Dore, who was a huge Bernie Sanders fan, and now he hates the Democratic Party. But if you were to ask him 10 years ago, he was a Democrat.
Hmm.
And they push people out. So yeah, that's the main thing I noticed. Like in terms of like policies, were you asking for policies or?
Open ended, just
Okay,
whatever
yeah.
however you want to answer it.
I mean, there's a lot of Republicans still in reality,
Hmm.
and I think that it's always important to have that conservative voice in terms of like a more limited government. But with Trumpism, it's a new brand of republicanism. It's like where it's not really based on principles or anything. It's just based on emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, yeah, like I kind of miss the old logical Republican Party. Like, um, I don't know. I'm thinking about the 1990s, like when
I
they.
thought they were going to go back to like Eisenhower.
Oh well, but
I
he
feel
was
like
like,
that was the last good Republican president was Eisenhower.
oh, but he was okay with more government intervention. Like he would be called a socialist today
Right.
easily by many of
That's what I mean. Is like a
yeah.
Republican of that era was so centrist compared to what the party became.
Yeah, I
It's
think what really hurt the Republican Party and made them who they are today more than anything was the aughts with the foreign policy, the horrible foreign policy of George W. Bush, Dick
yeah,
Cheney, and then Barack Obama not really reversing it, just
not
having the same foreign
right.
policy. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
all these people that were against that foreign policy, a lot.
Uh-oh, I lost you. I don't know if anyone can hear me, but I cannot hear you. Live ticker still going. Totally frozen. Actually, the banner is not frozen. The banner is still going, but Mr. Beat is frozen, and I am talking to myself. So, oh, he's gone. Am I talking to everybody by myself? Is that what's going on? This is a Mr. Beat takeover. Professor Dave is taking over Mr. Beat's channel. If how do I even see? Is there a comments thing here? Oh, there is a comments thing. Oh, you can see and hear me. How about somebody ask me a question? I could literally get Mr. Beat banned right now. Just spew a bunch of vulgarities and racial slurs. For the show with Arn Ra. Oh yeah. I'm doing what is it called? The Line. I'm doing the Line on Monday. I'm doing the Line on Monday. That I think that will be fun. I've been wanting to get into those podcasts for a while. Have you seen the PBS? No, I don't know that PBS one. Why did I mute my videos, Matt Walsh? I did not. Who's my favorite president? I don't know. FDR. The weakness of Kent. Wait, wow, I'm getting a lot of questions. The weakness of Kent Hovind. I watched a little bit of it. He's back.
Yeah, sorry, my internet went out. The Pentagon got me.
Oh no!
I was starting to talk trash about foreign policy, and the Pentagon got me. I'm sorry.
That is ironic. I got about 30 questions. That's fine. I won't look. I'm not going to look at them now. I had a brief takeover. I took over your channel.
Oh, thank you for keeping it going. What was the last thing you heard that I said?
We were talking about Democrats and Republicans, but let's move on.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's go ahead. Oh yeah. So now you're number 7. Yeah.
Right.
Maybe let's see if we can keep the next 4. Well, we could. Yeah. No, we're still good. We're an hour and 20.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's keep it up.
All right. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is related to my last question. Is we have two different styles, and what I mean by that is, I try to be. I don't want to word this in a way that offends you, but like I try to be a little bit more laid back about how I take. Like when I.
Not abrasive.
Yeah, I'm not as abrasive as you with like your debunking videos, which are your most popular videos, and they're really good. But at times, I notice people criticize your tone because it's like, oh,
Yeah.
you're demeaning and you're, whatever. And I'm just like, oh, trying to stay like,
Yeah.
okay, well, maybe they have a point. Although I will say both methods are effective. What was my question here? Oh, yeah. Why do you think your style works? Because I think it does work. I really do.
I mean, it's just I'm so blunt and I'm so just I do not mince words. I describe people as they are. If they're a fraud, I call them a fraud. If they say something stupid, I call it stupid. It's not that I think that that's the most effective way to do it. It's simply my personality to do it that way, and I don't like to misrepresent myself or put on airs. This is how I talk, and I feel a sense of urgency to. Okay, so there's two things I want to say about this. Number one, I feel that it is a disservice if you are exposing a fraud or exposing pseudoscience in some way. If you take a soft approach and you treat it as though it is a difference of opinion, you're doing a disservice. You are lending a false air of credibility to something that is objectively false, manipulative, propaganda, what have you. So I think it is wrong to do that. But number two, while I don't think that necessarily the way I do it is somehow the best way to do it, I do not feel that taking a softer tone is also, I don't think that that is objectively better either. I think that they are different styles and they have their merits. But I know debunkers in the science space that are sweet as can be, not treading on any toes, very agreeable. And if you go into, especially so much so that some of these people will agree to debates, like the Discovery Institute folks or something, they'll do an actual live exchange. They would never do it with me. They would absolutely never do it with me because they know how hard I would press them and I'd humiliate them. But they do say yes sometimes to these softer creators. And if you go into the comment section of those videos, it's unreal. It's unbelievable. The same way that they go into mine and say, you're just a mean jerk and I can't believe you're talking this way. You're so mean. In those, they go, wow, this is how public discourse should go. It's a civil conversation, and I have so much respect for how civil the conversation was. Ultimately, the other person didn't say anything that I found valid, and I'm not changing my beliefs in any way whatsoever. But what a nice civil conversation. So nothing has been achieved, right? It's the exact same script. It's just the mirror image. It's the polar opposite. They're still talking about the tone alone and saying nothing about the substance of what the person was saying. So to me, it's irrelevant. You know what I mean? It's like if you are motivated, if you are ideologically motivated to go like this and shut your ears when someone is speaking that says something you don't want to understand or believe, then the tone is, they're going to fixate on the tone no matter what the tone is as an escape port to avoid addressing anything substantive. So why misrepresent myself if it's not going to be any more effective anyway? I'm an abrasive, direct guy, and I'm going to talk that way. If someone's a fraud, if someone's an idiot, that's how I talk. And it's fun. It's fun and cathartic. And I think some people appreciate it because I don't abuse it, right? I only do it when it's true, right? This is, these people, the Discovery Institute is a disgusting, loathsome propaganda mill that's trying to aid in the creation of the Handmaid's Tale in America. That's the direction that it's going. You know what I mean? That's where their backers want to see biblical law, right? They want theocracy. This is a terrible, terrible thing.
You
Not
do a
going to be
lot of
polite to them,
you do a lot of debates, and I actually understand why people don't do debates because you hinted at
I've actually
this.
done very few. I've only done 3. But
Really?
yeah,
It seems like you've done a lot.
no, I
Okay.
did the Kent Hovind and I did the Jesse Lee Peterson. Why? I don't know why I did that one. And then I did the Flat Earth one. That's it.
Wow, they
True
must have just
debates.
been so impactful that it seems like more.
The Flat Earth one got a lot of views.
But the thing is, like, I don't think there's value necessarily in doing that because, yeah, like, you're just creating this false dichotomy, and where clearly one side is superior than the other, and you're just
I
you're
know.
legitimizing the side that does not need to be
Yes.
legitimized. Yeah,
Unless you make it so abundantly clear how illegitimate the other side is. And you do not do that politely. You do it directly and aggressively. Um,
yeah. It's hard not to go for the ad hominem, though. I mean, like because it's such like to me, or like any fallacy really, because I just feel like I would not do very well in a debate. Like people have tried. I did debate this one.
But there's no fallacy. To insult someone is not a fallacy, right? When I prove that what someone says is wrong and dumb, and then I call them dumb at the end of it, like the flat earther, there's no fallacy committed. That
Yeah,
is
no.
a refutation followed by an insult.
The vast
Perfectly
majority of what
logically
you, if you
valid.
actually watch your debunking,
Yeah.
there's very, if any, fallacies. But I think people think that there's ad hominem because you will use.
Yeah, but
that
they don't know
word.
what ad hominem means. I've never heard anyone use the term ad hominem correctly.
You have a video about that too.
Yeah, everyone who uses that term is using it wrong. They think it means insult. It doesn't. It
means attacking the person who's making the argument instead of attacking the argument, right?
Well, but it has to be in the form of an argument, right?
That's not the argument. Yeah.
Right. If you say you're wrong because you're dumb, that's an ad hominem.
Yeah.
If you say you're wrong and here's why, by the way, you're dumb, that's not an ad hominem. That's a refutation, direct refutation, followed by an insult. I mean,
so many people.
Well-deserved
You're right.
insult.
So many people don't know that.
No,
wow,
absolutely not.
I should have been more clear in my own logical fallacies video about that. All right. I think it's your turn.
Number 7 on me. Will we ever see a third-party candidate win the presidency?
Well, we have. Abraham Lincoln was technically a third-party candidate in 1860, so there just has to be extraordinary circumstances.
What were the other Democratic Republicans, and then he was Republican?
So in the 1850s, you had the Democrats and you had the Whigs, and then by the beginning in 1856, the Republican Party started to take over, but they still didn't have like mainstream appeal. Like they were still struggling. And so, but the thing about 1860 was that because you had so many people refuse to join the Republican Party because they're the extreme party that wants to ban slavery, those radicals. That's why you had two other political parties form. You had first of all, the Democratic Party splintered between Northern Democrats and Southern, and then you also had the Constitutional Union Party, which is another third party. And so if you want to get all technical about it, the Republican Party was the first third party to win. Now, some people will say, oh, well, they were really just the major party because the other parties were all splintered within each other. Okay, whatever. I think that...
how about the modern political climate?
I think you would have to have... see, what ultimately happens in the modern age is a third-party movement does arise, but then one of the parties just co-ops it. So we saw this in the 1990s with Ross Perot, the party that was... Like, really, Perot, he said some things that appealed to a lot of Democrats, but ultimately I think the Republicans were more... They embraced his politics more.
Similar, and Bernie too, like, shouldn't have been a Democrat or run as a Democratic candidate, but kind of had to.
And the Democratic Party, people don't like to admit this, but they've definitely went a little bit more to the left in recent years. Even Joe Biden, like, if you look at what he's done in terms of not just legislation he's signed, but antitrust enforcement and student loan forgiveness. Hello, that was something that Obama never would have done. So he's actually been influenced by the Elizabeth Warren / Bernie Sanders wing of the party, I think. So, yeah, they just co-opt it these days. It's just not going to happen at the federal level unless it's... I mean, also another thing people forget is that you've had third parties that did pretty well in certain parts of the country historically, like in Wisconsin and Minnesota. Just randomly, you had third parties do well there in local elections, state legislatures, House of Representatives, U.S. Senate, like the Farmer Labor Party in Minnesota and the Progressive Party in Wisconsin.
But for the presidency,
for decades. Yeah, so I think for people that talk trash about third parties, just remember that it doesn't have to be only at the presidential election.
Do you think if a third party kind of gained traction rising up through the ranks, maybe that would make a difference?
It would. However, these are extraordinary times. I think so much of...
Well, yeah, extraordinary times require extraordinary measures. I feel like...
Well, this is my whole criticism of the Andrew Yang's Forward Party, because I'm a fan of Andrew Yang. I like what he does, but I think politically he's not very good at at the political game, because
Hmm.
this is not the time for a third party. This is the time for people that it's either Trump or anybody else at this point. I really think that, like, because Trumpism, I think, is kind of a unique thing. Uh,
Yeah.
that's why you see kind of unique coalitions forming, like a bunch of Republicans joining forces with Democrats. Like, so I don't like. I think a third party would have made much more sense back in like 2008 or 20, even 2016. If you look at, yeah, you saw. Remember Jill Stein and Gary Johnson? They actually had pretty big followings.
I voted for Jill Stein just because I couldn't give my vote to either of the other two candidates.
Yeah, like I voted Gary Johnson in 2016,
Mm.
and but I didn't know how bad Trump would be. But
Yeah.
yeah, like especially when you live in a red or blue state, and you know your vote's not gonna make that much difference anyway.
Right.
And
Yeah, it
so
was a
yeah,
throwaway vote. It was just let me put one coin in the pot for a third party just as like a symbolic gesture.
yeah, because they get
You
funding.
know.
If they reach 5%, they get federal
Yeah.
funding matched. And so I do think there's merits to that. And but the problem is now it's like I feel, I don't know, maybe I'm a little like being too dramatic here, but I just think Trumpism is kind of more negative than
Yeah.
positive these days. And so
Yeah, disease. I think I was being the only thing I was being a bit naive about. I mean, I refused to vote Clinton because I just thought, I know Trump will be terrible, but we don't know what she'll do. We don't know what her foreign policy is going to look like. We don't know what kind of disasters could occur. But then what happened with the Supreme Court, I was like, oh
yeah,
God, she would not have done that.
Supreme Court.
This is bad. Like,
I always say though, hey, like the
yeah,
Senate has to approve, but now like they don't even need a 60 votes anymore. It's just 50 votes for
just
the
ramming
so
these people in.
yeah, and
So
I
I don't
wasn't
know.
I was not a Hillary Clinton fan at all, but in hindsight, yeah, I was like but maybe it would have been worth, like maybe Joe Biden never would have got, like, I feel like we still learn, like, the Democratic Party is still learning a little bit, that hey, we need to listen to the people instead of
Yeah,
being elitist.
yeah.
So anyway, uh,
Number
that
8.
was a fun question. Thanks for that one. I could go on
Yeah.
forever. All right. I better do this ticker thing. I keep forgetting to do it. How much time? You have enough time here?
Yeah,
Oh,
we can.
yeah,
I
we're
mean,
good.
3 more. Yeah, we can do 3 more.
Nice. We got this. Okay. Hopefully my internet doesn't go out again. All right. What's the biggest mistake you have ever made in a video?
In a video, what's the biggest mistake? Okay, so so when I started the channel, first I just did my OChem lectures, like to camera, with a whiteboard as though I was teaching. And I think those were very effective and quite accurate because I'd honed those lectures. Then what happened was I was like, okay, those went well. Let's do general chemistry. So I was literally in the tour van writing scripts from memory. Like, okay, general
Oh,
chemistry. Let's do about 40, and these are the topics, and yeah, this is about how this goes. Because I had like less than 1,000 subscribers when I wrote those scripts. I had no clue what my channel was going to become. So there are errors in there, and you have to know chemistry. I'd say if I had to pick one thing, in one of those, I was talking about molecular orbitals, but I was referring to hybrid atomic orbitals as though they are molecular orbitals, which is it's like an unforgivable thing to say. I still have yet to go. You know how I was told this like 6 months ago, and I still haven't done it, but I have to find the time because now what we can do is we can replace YouTube. We can replace video files in the same YouTube player, so you can keep all the metadata and keep all the views and everything, but replace the video file. So I'm finally going to go back. And did you know that?
yeah, but I tried to do it, and for some reason they wouldn't like let me. I don't know,
Oh,
but yeah,
really? Do you have a partner? You have a partner manager, right?
yeah,
Yeah, they should be able to figure it out for you. But wait, is it
yeah.
Dean or who?
Shout out to Lisa.
Okay, cool. Anyway, she should be able to help you do that. But I did it for one and it worked. And so now I got to go back. There's maybe half a dozen of the Gen Chem and probably half a dozen other ones around the channel where there's just something where I'm just like, ugh. So that one in particular, this thing with the molecular orbitals, like I don't, I even, it's so bad that I'm going to literally go hybrid atomic orbitals and put that audio in with the mismatch of what my lips are doing because it's that bad. I don't care. Like it's just like, oh god, I can finally like correct this horrible error. Other than that, I think that there are probably 20 or 30 videos that have small errors,
Yeah.
which are ultimately not like, okay, I'll pin a comment, like whatever. But
Well, also now there's a corrections feature that you can do with the
yeah,
cards. I've been
yeah,
going back and doing that.
yeah, yeah.
The
See,
most
yeah.
common mistake I have is pronouncing things wrong.
Yeah, I try really hard. I mean, I do like all the zoology content with the weird names of the organisms, and I do a lot of stuff with like foreign names, and like I really try my best. I really try my best to like really figure out how everything is pronounced. But yeah, definitely sometimes there's a flub. But that's like this is small potatoes. So
Yeah, that's the thing. I do feel proud that I don't have any videos that have major errors in them. And so I think that says a lot. I mean, there's been fellow edutubers, I will not name names, that have just left up videos with pretty big errors in them. And like you were saying, when you start your channel, there's something weird about like your mind.
I had
say,
no clue.
No one's gonna see this anyway. Yeah,
no
like,
one's gonna see it anyway.
You're writing the scripts without like there's like from memory. That's
yeah, because I had
crazy.
taught. I mean, I was teaching OChem for a long time, but I'd also taught Gen Chem. We're talking about high school level chemistry.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah, these are the topics, and I've explained this before. This is pretty much how I explain it. And then there's a few like arithmetic errors or something, or just careless errors. When we were making them and stuff. And I don't know. I mean, yeah, I got to go back and I got to find some time to go back and replace some of those video files. But yeah.
Well, nobody's perfect.
Yeah. Okay, number 8. Okay, so is America still on the way up? Is it treading water, or is it on the way down?
You did good at this. Yeah, I love your questions. I think I said this earlier in our conversation. I'm an optimist. I'm a naive idealist. I do think that things are getting better overall. Obviously, the last 3 years have been rough. But I do think even like there's a lot of times you have to zoom out to really notice things getting better. And I think somebody who does this really well, what's his name? Pinker. I forgot his first name. Steven Pinker. I think that's his name.
It sounds familiar, but I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Steven Pinker. He's a cognitive psychologist, and he's kind of. I think his books that are most well known actually are. He looks at these broader trends of society, and he does focus a lot on the United States. And I think even how we define poverty today is different than how it was a generation ago. So I think generally we are in better shape. That said, though, I think people get angry when I say that. And I think it's because they know that we still have so much work to do. And I agree. But I think the most frustrating thing about why I get upset with the slow progress we have here in the United States is you look at other countries. I'm constantly looking at I have a compared series where I compare two countries, and I'm just freaking looking at data. It's just raw data.
Yeah.
Life expectancy, cost of living.
Not even polls, just like
happiness.
Yeah. Right.
The happiest people in the world. And
Scandinavians.
Exactly. I get so frustrated with Americans who just like, whoa, we're the greatest country in the world. We can't get any better. I'm like,
dude, we've got
that's such an
big problems.
Yeah, that's an un-American thing to say for
Yeah.
starters. Like, we should constantly be trying to get better. And I feel like there's just a segment of our population that refuses. Like, conservatism is good. You want people in society to say, pull back the reins, slow down, because if we move too fast on this,
Hmm.
there's going to be unintended consequences. That's why conservatism is so important. But I think there for so long, like probably at least a generation, if not two, we've had that those voices are too loud. And the root of the problem is we don't have true representation in this country. And I've gone on ad nauseum about this. Like our voting is all messed up with gerrymandering and
Hmm.
representation not still being antiquated. So, like, if we fix the representation problems, I really do think we'll start like progress will resume. People complain about the Supreme Court though, and like I feel like I have to defend the Supreme Court a lot of times though because they're a big reason why we've made any progress in the last generation. I always bring up gay marriage. I mean, that if where would we be without the Supreme Court's decision in
Hmm.
Obergefell v. Hodges? And uh, a lot of
That's why we
times,
got to change how it operates, term limits or something, because this lifetime appointment, you get one guy like Trump in there. How many people is he putting there? 2, 3? I don't even remember.
he put 3 in. Yeah,
3. It's like, dude, no.
that's a lot of influence. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I know the reversal of Roe v. Wade was really discouraging for a lot
It's
of Americans.
astounding, man.
But at the same time, I like to remind people that hey, it just said the states now have power again. I'm a big advocate of like Democrats who are really fed up with the direction of this country overall, moving out of blue states into red states. It wouldn't take that many of them to move to Wyoming or North Dakota to,
To sway it. Yeah. To
yeah.
swing it. Yeah.
You can work
Especially,
remotely. You don't have to
right.
work.
Yeah. The pandemic. Yeah. Everybody moved to someplace rural and turn it.
I mean, yeah, because like that's
Yeah.
what's happening right now. You have the it's warped representation, and so that's why I think it's frustrating. And yeah, like I I think that the one of the biggest problems in terms of issues is healthcare. Uh, I it just breaks my heart every day when I see how many people that lose all their money because of medical bills,
Yeah.
and we can't figure that out yet. So
Yeah. Agreed.
yeah,
Number 9.
moving it quite along. Okay. There's no good segues for this conversation. Our questions are so different. Yeah, let's go with the robots. When and how will the robots take over?
This is funny because it really struck me. It was maybe a month or two ago. I was in a hotel, and I saw a robot. Not like, oh, like, you go to like an expo or like you see it on the internet and they're working on it. I was in a hotel. A robot got on the elevator with me. I don't remember if it pressed a button or if it was able to activate it remotely, what floor it wanted, went to the floor, got out. I watched like in amazement. It went to the room, knocked on the room. The person opened the door and they got the thing that it was bringing them. So
Wow.
it's a robot. It wasn't like an android. It was like a little boxy thing.
Yeah.
But I was like, that's the first time I ever saw a robot actually integrated into society, performing a distinct task like a robot. And I was like, wow, this is like a moment. This is like a moment for me. Like, this is really astounding how slow the implementation is. I don't know if that was really leading towards any kind of answer to your question, but I think never. I don't think robots will take over.
Really?
I think a better
You're an optimist.
Yeah, I am an optimist. I think a better question is if artificial intelligence will take over as opposed to actual hardware. I think that's probably
okay.
the same question.
That's kind of I was kind of
Yeah.
being a little facetious there with saying robots.
Yeah, I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and like I'm not a tech guy, so like this is not my realm. But just from the standpoint of like consciousness, like I think we tend to like anthropomorphize things, and because humans are like aggressive and seek to dominate and seek to collect resources and things, that we sort of attribute that sort of behavior to any raw form of consciousness. But I think that AI, like I struggle to find a motive that any kind of artificial intelligence might stumble upon out of their own accord that would motivate them to dominate the human race. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, we're
But
destructive.
yeah, we are.
Would be destructive to their own habitat. Why would they not be threatened by us?
What habitat? I mean, like we're gonna shut everything down. We're gonna shut them off.
Destroy the planet, or maybe, yeah. Well, perhaps.
Do they care? Does artificial intelligence fear death the way humans do? You know what I mean? 2001: A Space Odyssey is probably my favorite movie of all time.
It's a good
And
movie.
Hal is an unbelievable character. That is a really great thought experiment in like what would AI do when threatened, you know. But I don't know if it's wonderful science fiction. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if that's right. I don't know if
Yeah.
AI would behave that way. And I'm just saying I don't know. Like it's like yeah,
It's always a good answer.
I have no idea. In the meantime, I think like Chat GTP and stuff is
I was
like
going to bring that up.
pretty cool.
Have you used it?
A little bit, yeah, just to like see what it is, or also like the thing that you give it all your headshots and it makes those awesome surreal artwork of you. Which like I got a bunch of like you just do. Oh, I'll pay $5 for like a week and I'll just get like 100 of them, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna use these as like album artwork. Like it's me and I'm in space and I'm like, it's crazy. I'm like, this is amazing. I mean, I can't wait till it gets to the point where like it might like it might impact my workflow if I can train AI to like do some of my post production for me. Like it'll change everything. It's incredible. So I want to stay on top of that. But will it always remain a tool and never will it never usurp power? I don't know, man. I think no. I think it will always be a tool, but yeah.
I think
We'll see.
I lean towards yes, actually, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be a bad thing. I think humans will accept it, which is kind of crazy to think about. Obviously, I have no idea as well, but we base a lot of what we think about this stuff on science fiction movies and
Right.
books, whatever. So
Yeah, iRobot.
but
and,
the people who create these science fiction uh, movies and books, they think about this stuff all the time, and I think we should pay attention.
Sure.
And I have used Chat GPT lately, and it's helped me for research. Now, I tweeted this, I think, just yesterday. It gets a lot of stuff wrong. I've had to correct it. And the thing that I guess troubled me the most was how confidently it said, like, because I'm making a video right now. It's the differences between blue states and red states, where I just look at the data, because ever since Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted that national divorce thing, I've been kind of fascinated. Like, what if we did split up between blue states and red states, and what would it look like? And I was like, okay, like maybe you could add some of this data up for me so I don't have to. But I ended up having to dig into the data because it literally said Vermont was a red state, and so I had to like.
Interesting. That's such like a trivial fact too. That's like a trivially incorrect thing.
And it said it so confidently, and then I said no, and I said no, it's not. And then it said, "You were right." And it paused a little bit, like, and then it corrected it. Said, "Yes, you're correct. I'm sorry about that." Then it gave me the right information. Isn't that weird?
It's an enormous problem, because like the way we conceive of like information, and now in the digital age, the amount of information that is being created every second of every day, we will never be able to navigate that world without artificial intelligence. We will require artificial intelligence to curate and to curate that information, and we will interface with the AI to sift through the information. There's no other way. It's just an amount of information that humans can't even conceive of.
Yeah.
But how do you ensure that it does it properly? We're just going to end up trusting AI, and if it's wrong, we're screwed. I don't know. But we can't do it any other way. The alternative is that we do not progress as a species.
Yeah. That's
So
why I say eventually we might just give in, and we might
yeah,
just. I don't know. I
let
think
them
that
figure it all out.
I said this before in a stream, but I think that humans, we like to think that we want to be free and that we don't like fascism or authoritarianism, but I think we secretly do like it,
Hmm.
and we just haven't come to terms with it.
Maybe
Um,
benevolent fascism,
well, and that's what
if
people
there is
argue,
such
that
a
that's
thing.
what like the Asian model. You obviously there's authoritarianism all across Asia, but a lot of Asians are perfectly fine with it. Like uh, now it's interesting in China in particular because like they are clearly authoritarian, but sometimes they let the people think it's like they pretend, like they cosplay to have freedom. Like
Hmm.
they'll just randomly let them protest sometimes and not do anything about it. Like so I think it's all. I don't know. I just think we
It's
like to
very
think of
manipulative. Yeah.
ourselves as free thinkers, and we're just do. But I think ultimately we will just like give in to the machines and
Maybe.
accept it.
Yeah. But maybe they'll be the benevolent dictators we always wanted.
Troca Nero, yes, I've seen that. It is
Oh man.
amazing. It's going around right now. There's a video with where an AI voices they use voices for Biden, Trump, Obama, and Hillary Clinton playing Minecraft. It is hilarious.
Dude, I've seen
Thanks
a
for the super chat,
bunch
bro.
where they have Joe Rogan and like Jordan
Yes.
Peterson. Those are no, they're equal parts astounding and hilarious because they're
Yeah.
talking about like, Jordan, tell me about the philosophy of SpongeBob SquarePants, and it'll be like, well, ultimately it's a hero's journey, and it's like it sounds just like him, and it's like stuff he kind of would say. You're like, how are
Yeah.
you doing this? This is so scary. It's also very scary though, like with these kinds of tools, with deep fakes, with AI voice recreation, and with giving everybody our thumbprint and retinal scan for all of it's like in 10 years it's going to be so easy to frame anyone for anything.
Yeah. And
What are we going to do
the government's
if
not going to figure it out till it's too late to
I know,
to put in safeguards against this.
like
Yeah.
here's thumbprint data and DNA data because we have your 23andme stuff, and here is a video of them committing the crime and talking about it while they're doing it. And it's like all of this is fake, but oh no, like
Well, that's why I think critical thinking is so like we just have to train people not to trust anything.
yeah.
Like you just including you all watching right now. Why are you trusting us right now? Don't trust us. Like
Hmm.
constantly question everything. Doesn't mean
Sure.
that you can't
Yeah.
have values or principles or truth of any kind, but just know that it's an ongoing process. These people that retweet something immediately,
Right.
stop doing that.
Hmm.
Just stop like, oh, assuming that
Well,
that's
I yeah,
correct.
I retweet opinions. I retweet like, somebody's got a hot take and I'm like, "Oh, I agree with that." That's an opinion.
That's a good way
But
to
yeah,
say that. Yeah, but I'm
but I
just talking about like an
agree.
article.
Sure, sure. Yeah, yeah.
That,
Maybe they didn't even
most of the
read
time
it.
they didn't even
Yeah.
read it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the reason why I asked you that question is because I was watching that Megan movie, which is
Oh,
pretty
cool.
entertaining.
Yeah, I didn't see it, but I know
I
what it
recommend it.
is. Yeah.
I was like, I think, yeah, I want to get.
Okay, number 9 for me here. I'm almost certain you've made a video on this. I'm not sure, but most underrated president and most overrated president.
Oh, it's. I have not made a video about the overrated, but underrated I have, and that would be James Polk.
Hmm.
James Polk, I think. I'm not necessarily a fan of him because I think he was a war hawk and he was he had horrible racist views, especially toward Native Americans, Mexicans, African Americans, etc. But he got done what he said he would get done, and he did it in 4 years. He actually, as soon as he was sworn in, he's like, "I'm not running for
Hmm.
re-election.
The
I'm here."
deliberate one term. Yeah, I remember that.
Yep, he's gonna do. I'm gonna get the job done, and he got it all done. And then he left, and then he died a few months after he left office. And
How
you know,
poetic.
like literally, the reason why where you live, California, exists is how it is now is because of him and half the country. The Mexican Cession was because of the Mexican American War and Oregon Territory. Um, it's a big freaking deal, and much. I mean, it was a fairly easy,
I thought the Pacific
relatively
Northwest
speaking.
was part of the Louisiana Purchase, no?
Uh, part of it, I guess.
Mm.
But no, modern day Oregon and Washington State and most of Idaho was Oregon Territory, which is split with Britain. And they literally just they met up and they said, we're just going to split it 50-50. And which was.
Their half was the Canada part now, or?
Yeah, British Columbia, Alberta. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy to think and how easy it was just to expand a country.
Yeah.
like it's
Here's this enormous, like 5 countries worth of land. You take this, we'll take that. Yeah, it's like that era is over. That era is gone.
I brought this up in my Oregon Trail video too, because I think about this a lot, is wealth a lot of times is strongly linked to land ownership. And the first people who settled Oregon, who were not Native Americans, a lot of them didn't actually stay put. They were nomadic. But the Europeans who came to Oregon Territory, who were the first to get there, they got some of the best land in the world, and they got it for free.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking hundreds of acres. And some of these people still, like the ancestors of people that live there today, like there's direct lines. Like if you look at some of the wealthiest people who stayed in that area, that part of the world, Oregon, Washington State, British Columbia, and you can track on ancestry back to those first settlers.
They're killing it.
They're killing it. Yeah, that old money stuck around. They passed down we forget how many, like the Homestead Act, like when we talk about things like systemic racism, these minority groups didn't get all that free stuff.
No.
So
yeah, they didn't have access at the time. Yeah, it's the next time that will happen, it will be on another world.
Yeah,
like,
Mars.
That'll happen on Mars
or the moon, I guess. Yeah.
Old money, old Mars money.
Yeah, the first set.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Well, I know we got one more. So
yeah, let's rock it.
We're doing all right. So I know a lot of this has been education themed since we both have that background. But in terms of K through 12 schools, what would you like to see more taught of, and what do you think is overrated that we would just get rid of the curriculums?
I think that I mean, a lot of people say this, and like I think I kind of agree with it. Like a home ec, and I don't mean cooking. I mean like how to be an adult.
Oh, should be taught. Yeah,
it should be taught.
That's why that YouTube channel, How to Adult, was so popular.
Right, there is a channel like that. Yeah, it's like because I certainly was completely incompetent with all of that stuff, and remain somewhat incompetent in a lot of it. Obviously, through experience, you figure out how to be an adult. But I think everybody could. There's all these things that you have to do as an adult that nobody teaches you how to do them. You just have to figure it out. Hopefully, you have friends or somebody that can guide you. But there's no curriculum in place for it, and I think that people could have that. And then I also think more art and stuff. I mean, I think a lot of schools like have cut art programs and things like that. And what could there be less of? I don't know. I mean, it's all good. Everything should be taught. I just personally, I hated literature. I just hated reading like 19th century British novels and stuff like that. And it's just like, oh God. But other people, like, if you really like it, I don't know, everybody can. So there's nothing that I would delete. Everything has merit to be learned, but I would add stuff.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. It is sad to see the arts be cut across the country.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of jobs require, like the ones that are the good, so-called good jobs,
require creativity.
Creativity,
they have not yet been automated.
Yeah, you kind of have to just give students freedom to just like work on a project. That's why I was very project-based learning was. I was all about it when I was in the classroom. Like, just see what you can come up with. A lot of things were very open-ended. Just make sure I check the facts. But other than that, because, I do think, especially as teaching history, I think memorization of facts is overrated. Now, people disagree with me on this in the YouTuber community, like JJ McCullough, Knowing Better. I talked to him in the last one of these, and he kind of they kind of disagree with me, saying that you do need to know facts because it's like I always compare it to like speaking a language. If you don't have
Have
so
the
many facts,
vocabulary.
yeah, already in your
Yeah.
brain, then you can't go
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah, you need to know I mean, it's like just having studied science, I think people level that criticism quite a lot, and it always confuses me a little bit because I just remember. I mean, I got a public education, but it was a good public school. But I remember getting a good public education. I remember getting a good education that was always contextualized in like the history of how we came about. You like but it is part of the formal curriculum. Like when you learn chemistry or you learn physics or whatever, you a little bit learn the history of that science and
Hmm.
contextualize it in the discoveries, who made them, how they made them, what we thought before, the experiments they did to substantiate something and corroborate a new idea, how that changed the field. Like we do learn all that stuff. I don't know if everyone does. I kind of think everyone does in most of these curricula. It's kind of built in that way, certainly for chemistry. Um, but I think that's a good thing, and I think there should be more of that. And I don't know how. Yeah, I mean, even in like the literature stuff, like with English classes, like I always had pretty good teachers that tried to like have really conscientious, thoughtful discussions about the books we were reading and like how they like what was the cultural commentary that the author was trying to make with this, and try to make you think as much as possible. And some students were super into it and some a little less. And what are you going to do? But yeah, I don't know. I always felt that is largely in place, at least when the education is when the schools are doing what they're supposed to do. You know.
I always feel like the more facts you know, the it's like shortcuts. It makes it
Hmm.
easier to apply to use the higher level skills that we're aiming for. It just makes it more efficient to get to that point. You know, if you already have a bunch of stuff, neurons that are connected or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm.
yeah. I'm sure I could talk to you a while
Yeah.
about that one. What's your last
Okay,
question?
last one. Would you ever consider running for some kind of public office?
Oh, you asked me this in person when we met up.
I did. I didn't remember that.
When we were walking in
This
New
last
York
one in New
City.
York. Oh, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, it
That
was
was
cool to
not that
hang out
long
with
ago, so my brain's fried, I think.
you.
Yeah.
No, I think I would run for local office. I don't think I would like to run for national office unless it was perhaps the House of Representatives. I would consider that. But the thing that holds me back from something more high profile is the campaigning and the begging for money. It's just that would be really
Hmm.
a drag, and wouldn't want to put my family through that kind of publicity
The
because
background, all that stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and
Maybe in a decade.
yeah, when they're like my kids are fully grown, I think I just constantly worry about already. You know, we talked about this earlier. You don't want to put them in harm's way if you can,
Right.
and it's a weird thing. You know, the problem with our channels is that we're the brand, and I sometimes envy those folks, like oversimplified. We
A little
also
more
got to meet.
anonymous.
Yeah, they can just be anonymous. No one
Yeah.
knows anything about them.
Yeah.
Mysterious.
Yeah, it's like in my content I don't tell really anything about me, but I love doing conversations and like interviews and things like that. So through doing those, people who care have learned a lot about me.
Yeah.
But yeah, the family thing is kind of a line. But yeah, I don't know. I think you should run for office. I think you'd do well. You're a level-headed, clear guy that could reach across the aisle. I think you'd do well.
Well, thank you. That means a lot.
Hmm.
I'm sure if enough people bug me to do it, I would be more influenced to do it. But
Yeah, and if you get to like, give it a decade, hit like 10 million subs, and then you've got like a built-in coalition
yeah,
that will support you.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm I'm fiercely independent, so it'd be I'd have a
Hmm.
hard time. I would have a hard time picking one political party and just going with it. But
Go rogue, man.
yeah, it could the Ross Perot way.
Yep.
Got that Perot sticker back there that my father-in-law gave me. By the way, people
Very
see that
nice.
all the time. All right, well, yeah, we'll wrap this up so you can get back to your life, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And thanks for joining me this, I guess it's afternoon for
For
Us here in the
me,
United
yeah,
States.
four,
Yeah.
four still afternoon. Yeah.
It's dinner time for me. But hey, actually, those watching, if you still want to watch me in a live stream, after this, I'm going to be hopping on the Cynical Historian's live stream that he's doing right now, competing with this one. He's streaming for 10 hours straight to celebrate 10 years of doing YouTube.
Wow.
So that's longer than you, too, right?
Yeah, 8. I've been doing this for 8 years.
8 years, yeah. I started publishing regularly in, well, yeah, because I had videos before then, but 2011 is when I actually started
Wow.
publishing videos. Yeah, that's
Early pioneer.
yeah.
That's Wild West days, man.
Well, I mean, I should have done more of it because I remember
Yeah.
the Crash Course. That was a big.
Right.
I was like, yeah, this
Crash
really
Course, Khan
inspirational.
Academy. Yeah. Even in 2015 when I started, it was still a little thin. I mean, there was a good amount of stuff, but not like, I think 2017, 2018 is when people were like, wow, like, look at what you can do on YouTube. Let's all go and do it. So
I still think that the future of YouTube is promising for edutubers like us because
yeah,
I feel like there's a huge need for it, and YouTube
yep,
recognizes that.
they
We
do.
saw firsthand, they were.
I feel very seen and appreciated by YouTube. I know why they do it. They know exactly what they have. They know that YouTube has a reputation for being where you go to learn things, and they do not want to lose that. And they know that in order to not lose that, they have to value their creators, their edutubers, and they do. I feel appreciated and appropriately compensated. So why would I put content anywhere else?
Yeah. TikTok, go for it. Do you have a TikTok?
I have a TikTok because I did the TikTok Learning Fund. They reached out and they hired about 30 or so creators and they paid me an inappropriate amount of money to make 40 TikToks. So obviously I did it, and I did not gain enough traction doing those 40 to justify continuing to do them for free. So I did not do more TikToks.
Yeah, YouTube takes much better care of
Yes.
creators than TikTok does.
I don't even understand how you monetize TikTok. I know somebody does. I mean, apart from like brand deals and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
it's just like those make my stomach turn.
Oh, they're
Like,
cringy. I might be doing one though, because they throw enough money at
Yeah,
it.
if you can do it on brand. I've done a few, but they're always very on brand. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
it has to be stuff that you actually use and.
Well, not use, just like I did, recently I did chemistry laboratory techniques where I hired a chemist to physically demonstrate laboratory techniques. And that was sponsored by Thermo Fisher Chemical, the laboratory supplier.
That's awesome.
So it's like, that fits. I'll do
Yeah.
that. That's
yeah.
totally fine. You want to learn how to do chemistry in the lab? Here's a sponsor, somebody who makes stuff for you to use in the lab, right? It fits. But I get offers all the time for it. I'm just like, I'm not going to advertise your video game on my. It just doesn't. I'm not going to do that. It doesn't feel right. So whatever.
I've sold that plenty of times. I have a law firm now that sponsors some of my stuff, Morgan and Morgan.
I mean, look, everybody can make their own decisions about how they do it, and we all have to, we got mouths to feed, so it's like
that's the thing.
No judgment, but everybody has. It's very personal how you decide to do ads and things like that. Everybody has to have like their own truth,
You
All right,
got one
one more
subscriber. Yeah, subscribe to Professor Dave. Although you're doing pretty well, I would say you've over 2 million subs now, man. That's awesome.
Not too bad. Yeah, you're coming up on the big mill pretty soon, right?
Maybe in a few years. I don't know.
Yeah, a couple, one or two.
All right. On that note, thanks for watching. If you have a suggestion for someone else to interview, or we'll interview each other, let me know. And until next time.
Bye, everybody.
See you later.